Today we're at the home of a really good friend of mine, Joey, and the reason we're here today is to talk about the 243 Winchester and other similarly low recoiling cartridges, the small bores. Well, I have gotten so many questions from so many of you that you really like the 243, you want to use it, it works for you, but you've heard so many negative comments about it and so forth. Or you just have concerns because so many people have said it's not enough for deer. So we're here today to talk with an expert on the 243. Now, a lot of us have been calling this the information age, but truthfully, I think it's the misinformation age because there's so much bad information out there. And I thought it was funny. I started reading a book recently, Jack O'Connor's The Hunting Rifle. And a lot of you know who Jack O'Connor is. Well, he's the source of so much of our information now. Or we reference him in so many things. And what I've been wanting to do is get back to the original sources. And that's what's wrong with a lot of the misinformation out there is we're not going back to the original sources to see what actually was said, whether it's history or hunting rifles. Well, I thought it was funny. Jack O'Connor's very first chapter was picking your experts. That's the very first chapter in the book, The Hunting Rifle. And in it, he talked about, a lot of the so-called experts. For instance, on deer hunting, they've never killed more than 2 or 3 deer. That isn't necessarily the people you need to listen to. So I wanted to bring in a true expert on the 243 today. And I'm picking him as our expert. So Joey, if you would, tell us a little bit about your hunting experience with the 243.
Well, I started out with a 243, it's just a gun I picked up off the shelf at the gun store. Just happened to be the right gun for me. And I probably killed 150 deer with a 243. I've killed deer with other calibers too, but the 243 always holds a special place for me because I killed my first deer with it. That's all the gun I have for many years, so I killed a lot of deer with it. When it's the only one you have, you tend to get, good with that gun or confidence with that gun, and you just continue on. So as I got older, naturally I got more guns and was able to branch out to other calibers, but still I will take the 243 the first time hunting every year because it holds a special place. I took it this year and harvested a deer, first deer of the season with the rifle. I harvested one with it, and like I say, every year it holds a special place, so it's the first one I had to safe.
And not only have you killed a lot of deer with the 243, and I mean a lot of deer, but you've also processed deer. You've butchered them, cut them up. Your side hustle a lot of times was working during deer season, skinning deer, processing them, and so forth at the largest deer processing place in our area. So you've literally seen what, thousands of deer?
Or more.
Or more. You've skinned them, you've butchered them, you've seen gunshot wounds from every cartridge there is pretty much.
Correct.
And you've talked with the people that have shot the various deer and so on. You know what a lot of them were using and everything else. You've seen the wounds externally and internally. All right, so when I say Joey's an expert on killing deer with 243, he's not just an expert with the 243. He's an expert on killing deer, period. Now, they don't exactly hand out little certificates to say expert in killing deer. But in terms of experience, I think he qualifies, and I think Jack O'Connor would agree with my pick of an expert here.
Yeah, I've seen every wound on a deer, good and bad. What used to be great, you get to talk to a lot of people. You get to see a lot of people. You get to see people year after year. So it used to be a man and his wife. They both deer hunted together. They have a pretty good farm here. She shot a 243. Naturally, he didn't. He had a bigger gun, but.
And you say naturally, we automatically assume someone's going to use a man's going to use a larger rifle.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And with her, she killed more deer just about every season that he did. She didn't lose any deer. You know, sometimes you get the story for him, well, I shot one too, but I didn't find it. Well, okay. That tells you right there, if they both hunting the same piece of property and she's shooting one gun, he's shooting a different one, well, it ain't necessarily the bigger gun's gonna help you that much. It's just more about she was probably putting the bullet exactly where it needed to be, and maybe he was not putting the bullet exactly where it needed to be. And works out that way sometimes.
That's so much of this right here. I mean, it's shot placement. That's the one thing I really try to stay on in my videos is shot placement. I don't care what cartridge you use. They're all great. They all have pluses and minuses and so forth. But if you can't put the bullet where it needs to go, it doesn't matter what you're using.
Correct.
And if you've got the right bullet and you put the bullet where it needs to go, you're going to take out a deer or any other game.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, you don't want to go hunting dangerous game with a 243. That wouldn't be my first choice. But, you know, for deer, antelope, anything like that, to me, it's a perfect choice. It's a gun that, with the right shot placement, the deer pretty much falls where it's standing. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to run after it. You don't have to be an excellent tracker. Or, you know, I've hardly ever shot one that went more than 10 steps, you know.
And you're talking about anchoring a deer. And that's something I get a lot of questions about also, is anchoring a deer. All right, let's talk about shot placement in terms of anchoring.
Well, with a 243, in my experience, you want to put it through the shoulders. If you put it through the front shoulders, generally speaking, it does enough internal damage where you get a little piece of the lungs, you get pieces of the heart, but you also take out both front shoulders. The deer pretty much has to collapse in the front end. With that, he or she is not a human deer, so they can't stand up on their back legs and walk away. So, you know, you're pretty much there, right there where you shoot them, and that shoulder shot pretty much puts them right there, or they may take a step or two and fall over. It's just, that's the perfect shot for that caliber, or for a smaller bore caliber. To me, it's the perfect shot, period. I mean, I stick with it because it works. There's no need in changing it. I mean, I've shot them with a 300 mag in the shoulder. It's not ideal, but, you know, I don't want the deer going anywhere. I don't want to have to chase nothing. I want to be able to take it home to my family and provide.
And this is interesting, too, that you said that, because Joey knows, you know, we've hunted together many years. He knows I've always aimed behind the shoulder. Or I say always, quite often. Okay, Joey puts it right in the shoulder. And I think I've heard you say many times, just follow the crease up right behind the leg, follow the crease of that leg up and move over 2 inches into the shoulder.
Yep, that's where and I pick a spot. I'm not just picking an area on the deer. With a 243, I'm looking at a spot. I'm picking a spot the size of a dime or a nickel, and I'm solely concentrating on that one spot.
You're not shooting at the deer, you're shooting at the spot.
I'm shooting at a spot. Same way I would be shooting a target. If I'm shooting for the bull in the middle of a target, it's about the size of a dime or a nickel most of the time. I'm shooting for that spot on the target. The rest of the target, at that point in time, when I got the crosshairs there, is irrelevant. Same way on a deer. I'm not focusing on nothing. I'm focusing on that shoulder and picking a spot on that shoulder and putting that bullet in that exact spot. And by doing that, it gives once you've shot a couple deer with the 243, it gives you a lot of confidence. It comes muscle memory. You're able to throw the gun up, and generally speaking, if you got your scope on the right power, not too high, not too low, generally speaking, when you throw it up, it just seems like after a few of them, it tends to follow there and get there every time, so you don't have to do much movement. It's amazing how it works, but it just becomes part of your memory and your muscle memory and everything, and it makes it pretty easy for you.
And I'm laughing when you said that because, as I said, I usually aim just behind the shoulder. Well, we were using very different cartridges. I used to shoot large, heavy, slower cartridges or bullets, like 303 British, one of my favorites. With the slower, heavier bullets, those do really well just taking out the lungs, aiming behind the shoulder. With the really fast-moving bullets, that generally doesn't work out too good shooting behind the shoulder. Right, the bullet's just going straight through the deer. With the fast-moving bullets, and 243 is a fast-moving bullet.
Yeah, it's pretty quick.
When it hits that shoulder, it's hitting something solid. When you hit that shoulder, it's doing some damage. All right, if you shoot it behind the shoulder and you just go through ribs and you don't even touch a rib bone, or you might touch a rib bone and that's it, you're just not going to get the same effect.
If you ever cleaned a deer, there's only about an inch in between each rib. So you got to think about that. A small bullet like a 243,
you got a 50-50 chance of not even hitting a rib.
You could split in between two ribs and it just hit skin. And if you've ever opened up a cavity of a deer, the meat in between a rib is literally about 1/8 of an inch thick. That's all you hit. I mean, there's nothing hard there. The skin is the hardest thing on the outside of the deer that you hit at that point. Well, that 270, 243, 6mm Remington, any of those cartridges, with that particular bullet being the size that it is, can slip in between there. It can get through there without really touching anything, or it may graze a rib, but it's not hitting nothing solid to create that.
You're not getting the expansion.
Yeah, the expansion and the big wound cavity. When you hit those shoulders, you create so much devastation that the deer can't do nothing but go down. It has no choice. I mean, because you're taking out shoulders and you're taking out vitals. And a lot of times you'll open up a deer and the front half of that heart will be jello or whatever from that shot, because all that's towards the front cavity of a deer. If you ever look at a deer's vitals, all the big vitals are towards the front shoulders. Yeah, I mean, if you ever think about that, if you just look at a chart, when I train my kids, I get a deer chart with the vitals on it and a target and set it out at 100 yards and make them shoot at that. I don't want them shooting at a paper bullseye, because it does them no good to be shooting at a paper bullseye.
And what you said about the muscle memory, as I've experimented with different cartridges, I have to consciously remind myself to move into the shoulder on the fast cartridges, whereas used to with the slower, heavier bullets that I used to shoot, it worked great for me behind the shoulder. 180 grain round nose and a 303 British, you hit them in the lungs and they don't go anywhere with that either. But that's because that bullet's dumping so much energy right there, even on soft tissue with that round nose. And a lot of times I wouldn't get a pass through. Well, it was transferring all of the energy to the deer.
And that's what it's doing with a 243. You wanting to dump all the energy from that bullet, whatever caliber it may be. You wanting to dump all the energy into the deer. You see a lot of people get caught up, oh, I want the pass through and I want it to, just keep on going, and I want to have this big heavy bonded bullet and everything else. And that's great at certain instances. But you want that energy to be spent by the time that round makes it to the other side of the deer. Yes, I want the round to come out too, but a lot of times if you see just for example, if you see a bullet go in the size of the diameter of the bullet and it comes out the size of a nickel, it didn't expend all the energy in the deer. It may have expended half the energy in the deer. when you see it go in the size of a bullet and come out the size of a baseball, it spent everything it had, and that bullet probably didn't go another 30, 40 yards behind the deer.
And that's where thinking about the cartridge you have and your shot placement comes in.
Correct.
And being able to hit the spots you're shooting at. Okay, Joey's aiming for the shoulders, but he's hitting the shoulder. Okay, he's hitting his spot. And with myself, as I said, for years I shot behind the shoulder, and I had to consciously, with the faster cartridges, tell myself to move into the shoulder, because that muscle memory you talked about. I'm still putting my crosshairs on the same spot for all the deer I shot with the 303 and 30-06 and 308.
And that's why we're doing this video, to tell you with a 243, you have no worries. If you put the bullet in the right place, it's going to anchor the deer. Or a smaller caliber. You know, it could be a 6mm Remington, a 260, a 7mm 08. You know, even now, a lot of people are into the 6.5 Creedmoor, the 6mm Creedmoor for that matter. You know, 6mm Creedmoor is still the same projectile as my 243. So all those things you can use if you know how to use that utensil and use it well. Put the bullet where it needs to go. It's no different than having a 220 grain round nose and put it where it needs to go. Both of them are doing what you want it to do.
So just remember, I don't care what cartridge you're using, as long as it's one of the standard cartridges, 243 included. If you put the bullet where you need to, it's going to work. All of them.
Every time.
Every time, every cartridge. So don't get caught up into making sure you have the right cartridge or that it's enough cartridge for deer. Focus on learning how to shoot and making sure you have a really good bullet for that cartridge for the game you're hunting. And in the case of deer, the Remington Core-Lock, the Winchester PowerPoint, the Federal High Shock, those bullets have been around for just about as long as the cartridges. There's a reason those bullets have been around for so long. I mean, I know the rage today is the premium bullets, and those are great in certain applications like elk. You want that bonded bullet. Or if you were going to try to shoot a deer with a 85 grain, 243, okay, I could see a bonded bullet then. But as far as just standard loadings for deer, all of those really simple cup and core bullets, they're going to work, and they've been working, and that's why they've been around for as long as the cartridges. So again, just don't worry about your cartridge, no matter what cartridge you're using, whether it's the 243 or the 6mm 257 Robber, 7mm 08, 260, 6.5. All those are going to work.
Don't let people get in your head. That's the biggest thing, because then you lose confidence, and if you lose confidence, then it's all about confidence.
It is. And if you have a 243, trust me, you've got a cartridge that you can have confidence in, and the same for all of the small bore cartridges for deer. Just put the bullet where it needs to go. It's going to do its part. Okay, I really want to thank my friend Joey for having us over here today. Hopefully he's going to give some of y'all some confidence. I have seen him take enough deer with the 243 that I'm convinced it works. I've seen the proof. And how many have you ever lost with a 243?
0.
Okay, I think that says a lot right there. So again, I want to thank Joey for having us over today. And a little quick channel news. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. I'm excited about that. I know that's nothing compared to most of the channels out there, but it means something to me. So I want to thank every single one of you that have subscribed. And we've got the new year ahead of us, which this is one of my favorite days of the year. I mean, just when you look out at the new year coming up, for me, all I see is potential. and I'm really excited about this coming year, and I think we're going to have fun on the channel this year. We've got some projects in the works right now that I think a lot of you are going to really enjoy. So God bless and have a good day.